If you or a loved one are living with a tic disorder, you've probably been told to just wait and see. It's the most common advice given by physicians and practitioners, and for many, it also can be extremely frustrating. You're watching your family member struggle with repetitive movements or repetitive sounds, and it feels like you're being told to do nothing while their world gets smaller. I'm Dr. David Danish, a double board certified psychiatrist, and I treat children, adolescents, and adults with tic disorders. In my clinic, I've seen the wait and see approach leave families feeling stranded between two extremes, doing nothing while things get worse, or sometimes the opposite, jumping straight into heavy antipsychotic medications that carry risks of massive weight gain, movement disorders, and oversedation. Today, I'm going to show you why that all or nothing era is over. I will walk you through a risk stratified treatment hierarchy that allows us to stabilize the brain's brakes safely. Stick with me till the end, and I will reveal a breakthrough medication currently in the final stages of clinical trials that could change the treatment landscape entirely by the end of this year or in 2027. When I first meet someone with a question of tics, the first thing I want to do is apply something called a clinical filter to ensure we have the right diagnosis. Not all tic-like behavior are actually Tourette syndrome or organic tics. In fact, since the late 2010s and 2020, we've seen an explosion in what we call functional tic-like behaviors, or FTLB for short. This is a phenomenon that primarily affects teenage females and often appears explosively overnight and involves usually more complex movements like hitting oneself or shouting full phrases or swearing than traditional organic tics. This is what we call a psychogenic condition. In the past, you might have heard this referred to as conversion disorder. This essentially means the brain is expressing internal psychological stress, internal psychological conflict through physical symptoms. Because of this, traditional medications for tics don't really work usually. Treating this requires psychoeducation, reassurance, coping skill improvement, and sometimes working with a mental health therapist to learn how to express anxiety or stress in different ways. But this video is about focusing on treatment of what I call the organic or classic neurodevelopmental tic disorders, for which we follow a specific hierarchy. I start with what I call tier 1, or the foundation. These are interventions with zero physiological side effects. The gold standard here is a therapy called CBIT, or Comprehensive Behavioral Intervention for Tics. So what is that? This is neurocognitive retraining, where a therapist teaches the patient to detect the premonitory urge, which is that itch or tension felt right before a tic happens, and engage in a competing response to neutralize it instead. I will often pair this kind of therapy with nutritional support using a specific combination of magnesium and vitamin B6. Think of this combo as neuroinsulation. Magnesium stabilizes the nerve cell membranes, while vitamin B6 helps the brain create calming chemicals it needs, like GABA. In randomized controlled trials, this simple combination of safe supplements has shown a 50% reduction in tic severity over 3 months. We also look at environmental triggers. For some children, avoiding artificial food dyes, specifically red dye 40 and yellow 5, can help reduce the systemic inflammation and hyperactivity that often makes tics more frequent. If that tier 1 foundation is not enough to stop the impairment, we move on to tier 2. This is the alpha-2 agonists, like guanfacine is one example. These are non-stimulants that help the brain's brakes in the prefrontal cortex work better. They help with impulse control and are especially effective if the child also has ADHD, although that's not essential, without any heavy zombie feelings of older medications. In some cases, we might use another alpha agonist, which is clonidine. It's a powerful tool in this class. While it's very effective for both tics and impulsive aggression, it tends to be significantly more sedating than guanfacine. The most important thing to remember with either of these medications is we never stop them suddenly. Doing so can cause a dangerous spike in blood pressure known as rebound hypertension. This is because these medications naturally lower blood pressure, so as we go up on the dose, the body gets used to that, and if we suddenly stop them at a medium or high dose, the body is going to respond with high blood pressure for a couple days. If we need more power than the alpha-2 agonists, we move on to tier 3. And this is where it gets interesting. This is a new tier and new medication. And these are the VMAT2 inhibitors. This is so amazing because historically, if those tier 2 medications failed, practitioners were forced to jump straight to heavy antipsychotics. Now, we have drugs like deutetrabenazine. These work by depleting dopamine at the source before it's even released, rather than just blocking the receivers in the brain. This is a massive clinical win because it avoids the metabolic chaos we used to see, things like high cholesterol, high blood sugar, or the risk of movement disorders like tardive dyskinesia and the heavier duty medications. By the way, just so you know, VMAT2 stands for vesicular monoamine transporter type 2, and that's why I like to say VMAT2. The research on these VMAT2 inhibitors is still relatively new, but it's growing rapidly, it's well done, and there are a lot of patients in the studies. So the data is very compelling, and what I love most is the favorable side effect profile. These are generally weight neutral and well tolerated by my pediatric patients. Now, one theoretical risk with this class is regarding depression and suicidal thoughts. So yes, these are important to monitor for mood changes, but it's also important to note that this risk appears much lower in patients with Tourette syndrome than in the original studies involving adults with a severe neurologic disorder called Huntington's disease, where that warning came from. So I'm not saying we should ignore the potential warning, it's just something that I think is higher incidence in that population. In my experience, for the right candidate, this is a safe game changer for reclaiming quality of life without the heavy baggage of older medications. Now, if that doesn't work, we go to tier 4. This is for the more severe resistant cases. This includes topiramate, a seizure medication, or aripiprazole, which many know as Abilify, which is an atypical antipsychotic that has many benefits in psychiatry. It can be an amazing medicine for a lot of disorders. So while Abilify can be very effective, including for tic disorder, it comes with many potential side effects, including restlessness, big weight gain, a risk for diabetes, a risk for other movement disorders that really make it my last choice when treating tics disorder. In other cases, very specific types of focal tics like violent neck snapping. Some academic centers are able to use Botox to temporarily paralyze a specific muscle that is involved with the tic, and then that breaks that sensory feedback loop. That high value insight I teased earlier is the emergence of something called ecopipam. This is an investigational drug expected to seek FDA approval very soon. It targets the D1 receptor or dopamine receptor, which is a pathway no other current medication uses. Phase 3 trials show a 50% reduction in relapse risk without the risk of weight gain or movement disorders. This could finally provide a potent middle ground for families who've been afraid of the side effects of those heavy hitters. I'm really excited about what the research shows so far, and I'm always looking to see when this is going to come out. This was a big talk, but I put together a deep dive resource on this entire hierarchy, including the specific dosing for the magnesium and B6, and a checklist for identifying functional tics inside my Mind Vault at drdaviddanish.com. You can access it for free via the link in this description below. Now, if you remember one thing, let it be this. Wait and see is a starting point, not a life sentence anymore. If tics are causing pain or social withdrawal, we have a ladder of safe, evidence-based steps to help you or your family member regain control of their own body.